The morning after Amina's confrontation with the elders, the village was unusually quiet. It was the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. The air thick with unspoken fear and uncertain futures. Amina, though shaken by the previous night's events, felt a strange calm settle over her. The path ahead were treacherous, but there was no turning back now. The village women, who had watched in silence as Amina stood her ground, began to whisper among themselves. Some spoke of curses, of the ancestors' wrath that will surely descend upon them all. But others, particularly the younger women, began to see Amina in a new light, not as a cursed widow, but as a beacon of strength in a world that sought to subdue them. As Amina went about her day, she noticed that she was no longer greeted with the same pitying looks. Instead, there was a cautious respect in the eyes of some, and in others, a glimmer of hope. But with that hope came fear. The village was a place where tradition was law, and those who defied it were not easily forgiven. The elders, sensing the growing unrest, moved quickly to reassess their control. They summoned the men of the village, instructing them to remind their wives and daughters of the dangers of defiance. It was widespread that Amina was cursed, that her defiance had angered the spirits, and that the village would suffer if she continued to resist. But these whispers, meant to instill fear, only fueled the fire that Amina had ignited. One evening, as Amina sat by her fire, there was a knock at her door. She opened it to find a small group of women standing outside, their faces tense but determined. Among them was a young woman who had spoken out the night before. "My name is Fatima," the young woman said, her voice steady despite the fear that flickered in her eyes. "We have come to talk, if you will have us." Amina nodded, stepping aside to let them in. As the women sat together in the small hut, the conversation that followed was filled with uncertainty, but also with a newfound sense of purpose. They spoke of the ritual, of the chains it placed on women, and of the life Amina had refused to accept. They spoke of their own fears, their own doubts, but also of the possibilities that Amina's defiance had opened up. "We have been silent for too long," one of the older women said, her voice heavy with the weight of years living in quiet submission. "But what you have done, Amina, it's shown us that there might be another way." Amina listened, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and trepidation. She had never intended to lead a movement, never imagined that her actions would inspire others to question the very foundations of their lives. But here they were, gathered in her small hut, seeking guidance and strength from her. "We must be careful," Amina warned, her voice soft but firm. "The elders will not take this lightly. They will do everything in their power to crush us, to silence us. But we cannot go back to the way things were," Fatima replied, her eyes blazing with determination. "We cannot unsee what we have seen. The question is, what do we do now?" Amina took a deep breath, knowing that the path they were about to take would be fraught with danger. But she also knew that they had already crossed the point of no return. The seeds of rebellion had been planted, and now it was up to them to nurture those seeds, to give them a chance to grow. "We stand together," Amina said finally. "We support one another, and we find others who are willing to join us. We cannot fight them alone, but if we stand united, we have a chance." The women nodded, their fear giving way to a cautious optimism. They knew the risk, but they also knew that the time for change had come. And so, in the quiet of Amina's hut, a pact was made. A pact to stand against the chains of tradition, to fight for a future where women were not bound by the past.